For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Sashni Midley. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me to discuss freedom and ethics then and now. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Now, early on in your column, you ask what it meant to join the liberation struggle during apartheid and what it means now. How do we compare those two different times?
It depends how you, what do you mean by joining the struggle? Because some people thought joining the struggle was to sit in seminars analyzing Marxism and things like that. But if you joined the struggle, meaning the legal struggle, in the 1980s, 70s, 60s, you had a very good chance of being arrested, being beaten up, being in dirty police cells, then put on trial, sentenced for a long time, or if, depending what you had done, maybe even sentenced to death. Nowadays, when you join the ANC, if that is the struggle, you don't have consequences like that, but a lot of people are joining it for contracts and things like that. I mean, I've listened sometimes, I remember hearing someone talking on the radio, a white, okay, and then at the end they say, that was so-and-so, so-and-so, the ANC councillor for this, that and the other. And what he had been saying was to me unrecognizable as ANC discourse from the time when I was very involved. Because people, since 1990, when the ANC was unbanned, it was open like in the 50s, and anyone could join by paying 12 rands. And when you worked underground, first you were on probation as a member, and then they decided whether to admit you, because if you were admitted as a member, you would learn things that were secret, and you could sacrifice others. Now when you pay 12 rands, you may learn things that are secret that get you contracts, and you become very wealthy. So it's a very different type of situation from that period. Also, it also depended on the way you came to the illegal struggle differed. Like in my case, I was on my own most of the time. They had very few people. This is before Soweto 1976. So they were rebuilding, and they wouldn't let me recruit anyone for a long time because it was very important for them to have me there and not risk recruiting someone who betrayed. And so it's a very different situation today, and I have no doubt there are some people who have the same values as they had in the period of illegality, but there are some people who had those values, who have taken a bite of the corrupt apple, and they liked what they tasted, and they want more, and that is what has changed.
And those people, as you said, they fought during the liberation struggle.
Not all, some, yeah.
Some of them. And some of them were part of Zuma's inner circle.
Yes.
How do we reconcile going from fighting for freedom to supporting a corrupt president?
Yeah, I think you can't reconcile it. Not just the inner circle, because if you think of it, not everyone who made it possible for Zuma to enrich himself was benefited personally in a financial sense. But a lot of them spent time in Parliament defending Zuma, or just voting for what Zuma did in Nkandla, defending Nkandla, all those sorts of things. So I find it very hard to reconcile it, and the question that I asked in that article is, have they actually acknowledged, if they want us to believe that something new has been born with the new presidency? I do believe there's something new, but is it completely different from Zuma? If it is, then you must say what it is that you are repudiating. It's not just a little mistake. It's got a number of qualities, and they do not spell out these qualities. They tend to limit it to corruption and state capture. But it's much more than that. The violence, the hyper-patriarchy, all of those things are features that do not come out of their mouths.
And you say that the party does lack compassion now. How shouldn't this be at the forefront of any party, especially one that fought for freedom?
Yes, no, they've got a lot of compassion for themselves and their own needs. They've got a lot of these people have got deep compassion for their own needs to increase their wealth. But a party that fought for freedom, if it is to retain that commitment, has to look at itself self-critically over time, because you can't assume that you're in a new condition where you no longer face dangers and all of this. You can't assume that your conduct is in conformity with that. I'll give you an example of something that has crossed my mind. We have a democratic constitution so that the laws enforced by traffic cops and VAT, all these things, are part of a legitimate fining and taxation. So when someone offers to let me pay something without VAT, I say no, I'll pay VAT. And I never try to get off a fine. I argue if, for example, I don't think I went through a red light or whatever it is, I will argue. But, and usually you have to argue because quite a lot of them are actually abusing their powers. But they want you to actually give them something sometimes. And one must not succumb to this. So those are things, whereas in the struggle, you wouldn't want to have police attention on an ordinary criminal matter, and you may just give them money to get them off your tail, not have them come to your house and just because they've come for another reason, find illegal pamphlets and things like that.
And do you think that the ANC can recover its compassion, or have we moved just way past that?
No, I can't say. I think the ANC is not just one thing. We don't really know what the ANC is like in some rural villages, although you have councils there and a lot of people are being killed to become councillors. But I remember when I was involved in around 2004, 2005, going to these villages, or I wasn't really office bearer then, but when you went there, the ANC was very different in the sense that a lot of the people in some of these villages can't read, and teachers would be playing a role, a sort of what we would call a comradely role in making sure that everyone understood everything. Now, so it may be that there are these pockets. Also, a lot of people say we must change from within, and I myself don't see that there's much chance of that happening. But the problem is that the opposition parties don't fill one with confidence of those values, and civil society is not very strong. There are pockets that are strong. Equal education seems to be very good. Abaklali and one or two others, small ones.
Thanks for speaking with us, Professor.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about freedom and ethics then and now.